Those Were the Days is filmed before a live internet audience.
Greetings, gourmet geeks and culinary connoisseurs. It's time for Those Were the Days, where we serve up savory slices of TV history with a side of scrumptious storytelling. Tonight, we're diving into a delightful dish of dietary drama as we savor the spectacular Good Eats, where food facts meet fantastic fun in a fusion of flavor and finesse. I'm Travis, aka TV's Travis, and I'll be playing the role of host tonight. But Good Eats are not made with a single ingredient alone. No. To fill out our parts list, we have the cast iron skillet we cook all these meals in. It's Steven.
Good Eats with Alton Brown. It's as if Adam Savage and Julia Child had a baby with equal parts nerdy charisma and exceptional cooking skills.
The perfectly paired drink that complements the dish. It's Audie.
Now, we all know that grazing animals like cattle and sheep eat grass. From grass, they get iron, which turns into myoglobin that creates their red meat. Pigs, on the other hand, eat more than just grass. They will eat any kind of crop residue from any number of foods, as well as barley, wheat, corn, and soy. They'll eat byproducts like grains, pulp, and meal. They'll eat food waste, such as unwanted baked goods, leftover fruits and vegetables. They will really eat just about anything. This one British guy with Coke bottle glasses told me that if you have enough pigs, let's say at least 16, that if they haven't eaten for a few days, they can go through 200 pounds of food in about 8 minutes. So a single pig can consume roughly 2 pounds of food every minute. Hence the expression, as greedy as a pig.
Oh, halfway through that, I knew you were going, and it was just perfect. And finally, the pinch of salt that expertly seasons everything. It's Amy.
I'm going to tell you guys, I forgot to prepare an opening for this week's show, so I guess we're going to have to order takeout.
Oh,
No.
snap.
So we are wrapping up Host Choice Month, and I decided that we would go back into the world of cooking shows with one of my favorites, Good Eats. So when we did our cooking show month, I thought about doing Good Eats. That was the first thing I thought of, but I didn't choose it. I wanted to go a little bit off the beaten path and not do a traditional cooking show, and that's where we went with Iron Chef. And then we did explore Martin Yan, Justin Wilson, Julia Child, some of the classics, right? But for me, cooking shows begin and end with Good Eats because Alton Brown he wasn't happy with the cooking shows he was seeing on TV, and he had three things that inspired him, and it was Julia Child, Monty Python, and Mr. Wizard. And he wanted to take those three things and mash them together and make a cooking show that he actually enjoyed. And from that, Good Eats was born. So before we dive too much into the show, I want to know if anybody had any history with this or ever watched it, starting with Steven.
I have never seen Alton Brown do anything. Ever. I mean, I've heard Alton Brown from friends of mine, good friends of the show, Zafo and Kelly, you, other people that have swung through my orbit from time to time. Alton Brown is great. My oh my, was I in for a show? I wasn't ready for this. I thought cooking show, great. Travis picks a cooking show again. I gotta learn how to do cooking show. That is not your grandma's cooking show.
No. Audie, how about you?
Oh, I knew about Alton Brown. I am a fan of Alton Brown. Definitely watched a ton of Good Eats. Definitely have the first cookbook they released of the show. So we've got that somewhere. Yeah, all about it. He was one of my favorite things that happened in the pandemic when he did his pantry raid stuff during the pandemic, of be like, hey, everybody's stuck at home, let's figure out something fun to eat, and the snacks and stuff he came up with. It was great. Just absolutely love him.
Yeah, and you're in his neck of the woods. He's an Atlanta, Georgia boy.
Yeah, he is.
Amy, how about you?
Do we need to ask this question? We need to ask this question. I own all of the Good Eats cookbooks. I own all of the Feasting on Asphalt cookbooks. I have watched most of Iron Chef America. I watch all of Cutthroat Kitchen. Yeah, I'm vaguely familiar with Alton Brown's work.
Yeah, for me, this was I enjoyed cooking shows as a kid. Like I liked the Frugal Gourmet. I liked Yan Can Cook. I would watch those on and others like them. But when I discovered and found Good Eats, something changed, and it was those three elements. He brought in. I mean, Julia Child, the godmother of all things cooking show, right? Like she is cooking television.
Yeah, it doesn't exist without her.
Right.
Yeah. And he knew that. And so he wanted one part of hers, which was the instructional stuff. But he also wanted, like, Mr. Wizard was something I grew up with. And that was, that's pre Bill Nye. Alton does get compared to Bill Nye a lot too, in like the way that he went about science. But Mr. Wizard would have been the thing that he would have seen first. So that to me really struck home. And then the zany element, the Monty Python, right? The kookiness.
Mhm.
And he made it entertaining. And he just brought something new. So he is now 62 years old, by the way, which, it's a thing. But he started off, he was a film guy. He went to film school at the University of, I think it was University of Georgia in the early 1980s. And he went on to do a lot of music videos. He was a cinematographer for REM's The One I Love. That was kind of a big one that he had done. And he was doing that, but he was just not happy with cooking shows that were on TV and decided he wanted to make one. So he actually went to, Amy, up in your neck of the woods, the New England Culinary Institute.
Heck yeah, baby.
Which in this episode we watched, he is wearing his NECI hat. He wore those a lot early on. And so he did two pilots for Good Eats. There was Stake Your Claim and This Spud's for You. And they aired on a Chicago PBS station initially in 1998 or 99, something like that. And an executive from Food Network happened to catch a clip of it from like the Kodak film website, I think, because he had used some Kodak film to shoot it. And thought, well, this is pretty cool. And so they picked it up.
It doesn't matter how good you are. There's like a giant element of luck.
Oh,
like
man.
you happen to use Kodak film.
Yeah.
And it was on their website. Like this is what they like. If you don't, I don't care how good you are. If you don't acknowledge the amount of luck that is involved, you're lying.
Oh, it's a huge chunk of luck. But it's also, if you never do it, that we used to say like, oh, wait till someone discovers. No one discovers.
No.
And you gotta put yourself out there. You gotta get the work done, and then let the luck lands you right in the front of the right person.
Yeah.
And in this case, it did, and he got picked up by the Food TV, or the Food Network as it became known. And the show then ran. It was one of the most popular shows on Food Network for its initial run, running from early 2000 until 2011, where they did 249 episodes in that time. And at that point, Alton decided that he was going to put the show on hiatus. I think his exact quote, let me see if I can find it, because it was pretty good, where he talked about after 249 episodes, he'd been working basically for 11 years straight on it. He could only do 22 episodes a year because they did, what did he say? Something like 300 to 600 pages of research per episode.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Yeah.
Dang.
And the whole thing is scripted, like completely scripted out. So it takes a lot to shoot. It's single camera. They do a lot of setups. And he just got to a point where he's like, yeah. And he was just burnt out. He's like, all right, I need a break. So as he said, he put the show on hiatus. He said this in an interview. I put it in cryogenic storage. I didn't take it out back and shoot it in the head. It could come back someday, but I need a break.
Yeah.
And that's when he went into his kind of game show host phase, where he started really focusing on Cutthroat Kitchen and other stuff like that.
Let me tell you, Cutthroat Kitchen is one of my favorites I have a lot of fun. It's my favorite convention show because Food Network runs it all the time at night. And so
Mhm.
like at the end of the day, when you're just kind of hanging out after, you've spent all day on the convention floor and you're just in your hotel room and you just put on some Cutthroat Kitchen. It's great.
Yep. Oh
And
yeah.
you're like, what are they gonna do with this nonsense now?
I think too it's important to distinguish that he got burnt out as host of TV. I think at least when I watch a lot of shows, I'm like, oh, the host reads the stuff that everybody else did the work to get for them.
Yeah, no,
Like
that's not.
that's
Yeah.
not what, and you can tell by the way it's presented. Like this guy's into it. He's part of this show. He's not just the person who's
They didn't hire him to do it.
right.
It's his show.
It's
Right.
his
Yes.
show. It's not just, oh, look, the light bounces off this gentleman's head just right and he can say words. It's
Yeah.
like actually his work has gone into
Yep.
it, along with the team, of course, but like he's
Yeah.
doing it with them. It's really cool.
Yeah, and they did an entire episode. I want to say it was after somewhere in season 8 or 9. They did an episode called Behind the Eats, and he talked about, the prop department, the puppets, the everything that they went into making the show. And it was a really cool episode to kind of just dive into. I think it was an hour long. But in 2011, they ended it with 3 1-hour specials. And what was kind of cool about it was because he knew he was wrapping it up. The first one was about barbecue, and he ended that episode with a monologue talking about how barbecue is more than just a type of food. It's a gathering, it's a family thing. And he had the entirety of the crew out, hanging out, eating, and showed all of them. And then the next episode he did was focused around revisiting Thanksgiving, and he brought back a bunch of the actors that had been on the show over the years in their roles that they were known for on the show to have kind of one last send-off. So people like Lucky Yates and his Dungeon Master, which when I started watching Archer
Mhm.
and the character of Krieger started to speak, I'm like, I know that voice. And I knew it because I knew Lucky Yates from Good Eats. Like he would show up in tons of different roles.
Alton Brown talking about Thanksgiving is one of my favorite things ever because I don't think
I
it's
love
that one. I think it's like a previous one talking about deep frying a turkey. And
Mhm.
he's like, okay, don't deep fry your turkey. Okay, all right, listen. If you're gonna deep fry your turkey, like, okay, but don't do this thing. Okay, but if you're gonna do this thing, here's how you don't burn down your house.
Right.
Yes.
But also, don't do this thing. It's really good.
I love deep fried turkey.
It's very good, but it's very dangerous. But the show was great because it wanted to be educational and informative, but highly entertaining.
Yeah.
So there was a mixture of actors and bits and like silly puppets and all of that. But he also brought on actual culinary people. He had one, probably the most common or the most recurring kind of expert that came on the show was Deb Duchan. She was a nutritional anthropologist. She wasn't in this particular episode that we watched, but she would pop up a lot. And it was a great running gag because for a while he would get scared of saying the words nutritional anthropologist because then she would just appear out of nowhere.
Let me tell you, if I had known that nutritional anthropologist was a thing one could be, I would be in a
Right?
very different place in my life right now.
That's like when I learned that paleoscatology was a science. I was like, dang it. Should have got in on that.
And sadly, Deb Duchan did pass away in 2019. But she was great because she would always come on. They would talk about the history of food. And so she would come on. I learned a ton from her. They also had another recurring one, especially early seasons, with Shirley Courier, the mad food scientist. And she is a delight. If you ever get to see her, she's just fantastic. But he also had dietitians come on. And then there would be members of the crew. Basically, every member of the crew was on camera at some point playing a character. They might be silent, like Itchy and Twitchy, which were the show's lawyers.
Yeah.
Would always show up, and they never had dialogue, but they would just be there to like hand him paperwork of stuff he wasn't allowed to say. and
Yeah,
stuff like
it
that.
a lot of times it had to do with cooking temperatures.
Mhm.
Yes.
Like, listen, you
Or-
want to cook it to this, and they're like,
Mhm.
well, it's gonna come up to temperature. And that's why you
Yep.
have dry pork chops.
Exactly. But he really wanted to and the funny thing was he self-proclaimed Alton Brown as a terrible science student in high school and college. Like he did not like science, but when he started researching for doing this show, he wanted to dive into that, and so he kind of refound a love for that, which I thought was great. I think that's really cool that he was able to kind of overcome that sort of, I didn't like science in school, but now, it is actually pretty fascinating, and he is known for that now. And I'm sure people grew up with him are like, that guy, because
Right.
he even has one episode where he talks about sitting through a science class and just like staring off at the ceiling. He's like, I would have learned that if I weren't, sleep during that class.
I will say, if you
Sorry.
do like food science, in addition to like the Good Eats books, obviously, I have this incredible book called The Science of Spice. And it's basically all of the spices, and then it talks about like the chemical breakdown of what gives it its flavor. And so then it talks about like what spices are related to each other based off of their flavor chemical. It's wild. It's so good.
That's a good one.
It's a gorgeous book. Absolutely recommend.
Nice.
It's so neat hearing that story too, because like it just shows you that just because you're academically not into something doesn't mean you won't venture into it when it relates to a real interest. Like you've got a real like, I need to know that, and I'm actually curious because of the way it got presented in food, or like, oh yeah, I need to research. Oh wow, science is fun. Versus like, behold, formulas, learn these for the test. It comes alive once you're able to find it on your own.
And it was one of those things where this show really, like, I always was interested in cooking shows and cooking in general, but it was never something that I really wanted to dive into until I started watching something like this, because then it made me interested in more than just, oh, you cook a thing because you do this, right? Like, and he even has jokes about that, especially early on with the mad French chef. Is a character that would recur and talk about culinary axioms, and then he'd be like, well yeah, but why? And that was the cool thing. I like diving into the why of how you would cook something. Why is it possible to smoke salmon in a cardboard box? Because you're doing this to it. Why do you braise this kind of meat versus this kind, and all that kind of stuff? So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and it made me want to cook more. And this particular episode that we watched was about ribs.
Yeah.
Which made me really excited because I do have a rack of spare ribs of baby back ribs in my freezer in my basement
excellent.
right now. So I was pretty happy about this.
I'm not a rib guy, but I became one over the 20 minutes this episode.
So this is a recipe that I still use to this day. I learned it from this episode, and I still do it. I have modified it over time. Like one of the things I do now is I cook my ribs in the smoker. I have an electric smoker. It's basically just an electric oven that sits outside that I run smoke through. So it's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
But in this episode, it was ribs. And what's cool is the early seasons of this, there was a lot more kind of the going to a meat packing area or going to a butcher shop or going to a production facility. And he would still do that later on, but it was less frequent as kind of production value went up and they were able to do more in their studio, or they were able to save money by shooting more in the studio. Because early on, they actually shot in a house. That kitchen is somebody's kitchen that he was shooting in. The first 4 seasons were shot in that kitchen, and it was some partners of his in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And then in season 5, they moved to a different house and a different kitchen, and they were there for 2 seasons. And then there was an episode where they shot it all in his Airstream, and the joke was he was on it. He was shooting it there as they were building the set for Good Eats the movie. But they were building a replica of the kitchen they had been working in for the last 2 years on a soundstage, because the neighbors in the neighborhood where they were cooking were not happy about them filming there, I guess, or something.
I
So
really love the in the house cooking in a kitchen set.
Mhm.
Like I know it's not a
Mhm.
set, but it makes it feel so much more real and like you can kind of see yourself doing that because he didn't have a lot of things around that said, I have 1 cup of this or 1 thing of this or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever.
Right.
He like got it out of a drawer and put stuff in
Mhm.
there and it made it feel. I mean, I know he's got it all prepared, but the way it came across is you can
the
do this
presentation.
because I'm
Yeah.
doing this. And even Jan Can Cook is great, the episode we watched, but like this had something else to it. It was like watching your brother or your dad make
Yeah.
stuff in your kitchen. It felt very accessible because of that choice.
Jamie
Yeah, and
Oliver is very good at that.
Okay.
Like
Mhm.
his is always like he cooks like in his back shed sometimes, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? He's just got like a burner and his stuff and he's just grabbing stuff out of potted herbs and like, oh yeah, this is mint sauce. Okay, actually this is mint jam, but either is fine and throw it in.
and that feel carried through because they did continue on in a kitchen, but the sets changed, and then when they rebuilt that set, they built it exactly the same on a soundstage. But when they the kitchen that they used after this one was set up with like a grid of pipes so they could hang cameras and microphones in there. And so when they rebuilt it on the soundstage, they could just do the same thing there. But as the show went on, he got more creative with camera placements. And so they ended up having things like in the set, the only things that actually worked were the sink and the cooktop because the oven didn't work. They had cameras inside the
Yeah.
oven.
Mhm.
They would have
Oh.
cameras inside the refrigerator, and the back of the
Yeah.
refrigerator would be cut out so they could film through it, and the microwave and all that kind of stuff. So he got really creative with like camera placements and silly stuff like that and Dutch angles and weird stuff. He even poked fun at it. There's an episode where they're making chili, and in it, he's playing a character of Grumpy Gus, a cowboy, and he's got his son with him, and they end up walking into the house to make chili. And what the one character is wandering around, he keeps getting stuff, and like he'll open a cupboard and there'll be a camera in there, and it freaks him out. He's like, what is wrong with these people? That they must be super fat. They're watching what they eat. Like they got cameras everywhere. It's weird. So he wasn't above making fun of himself at all, which was great. But that was again, it's that entertainment aspect of it. And the like puppets were a big thing for him too. Lots of puppets, lots of visual aids throughout
because
the series.
he is of the Muppet age.
Yeah.
He
Mhm.
understands.
True.
He gets it.
He does. At one point, he had a not Cookie Monster
Yeah.
in an episode.
Mhm.
It was green, and it was like Cookie Monster's brother or something like that.
There is definitely a 30-year window of like if you were born in this 30-year span, the Muppets are in your DNA. Like they
Yeah.
just
Yep.
It's just
they're-
part of who you are.
yeah,
Yep.
it's core memories just abound
Mhm.
with Muppets in them.
But it was a big thing for him to focus on the technical aspects of it and the techniques too, cooking techniques, and also using either non-standard cooking equipment or figuring out different ways to use cooking equipment. He doesn't like unitaskers.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The only unitasker he allows in his kitchen is the fire extinguisher, which later on in a live episode he proved that it's not a unitasker because he used it to make like ice cream or something. But he's always like making makeshift stuff. I actually did, because of his episode where there's smoke there's fish, I made a smoker out of a cardboard box and a hot plate and smoked salmon on my friend's balcony in his apartment. And it works. It worked perfectly. It was great. So that was like that kind of stuff where I remember him making a smoker for pork shoulder out
Mhm.
of like terracotta pot.
Yeah.
Or I remember him using a what was it? A box fan to become a dehydrator.
Dehydrator.
For,
Yep.
Yep, I've done that
Beef
too.
jerky.
jerky. Yeah.
Yep. That was a good one.
Mhm.
The key to that one is to use cellulose furnace filters and not fiberglass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is like
You wanna-
pretty
You
important.
want to make sure of that.
I feel like
Pretty
that's a
important.
valuable fact.
Also, to point it out a window so that you just get all the neighborhood dogs going because it just smells like beef jerky.
Mhm.
But yeah, this was just a show that was very near and dear to my heart, and this this rib recipe, like the dry rub that he makes in this, I still make it or some variation of it, because it's not a recipe so much as it is a method of like,
Yeah.
here's your, and it's the ratios, which I love that. I love that idea
Yeah.
of like, it's about the ratios. It doesn't matter how much of it you're measuring, as long as you get the ratio right, and then you add what you want. It's sort of that that idea of cooking is jazz,
Yeah.
and you can play fast and loose with it once you kind of get the basis and once you learn the parts.
I feel like you guys need to
and-
bring me a cooking show once a quarter so that I can
Sure.
remember.
We're there.
Yeah, I just need to remember that cooking can be fun, and I need to watch people do it to remember, because I generally do not enjoy the task of cooking. But when I watched him do it, I was like, I want to go buy some ribs right now.
I mean, well,
Mhm.
here's the thing, though, right? Like, I love to cook, like on Saturday. Like,
Yeah, right. Like, when I
I'm
didn't just
less
do a work day.
enthused on Thursday. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. You know what I mean? Like, and the problem is that Saturday me is the one making the menu
That's
and
right.
and the grocery list.
Right.
And she cannot be trusted.
Because Monday's gonna
Well-
roll around and you'll be like, I don't
Yeah,
want to cook
I
this
don't
tonight.
wanna
I had a
do
long
this
day.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things. So every episode of Good Eats would have a theme of some kind, and usually it was an ingredient, right? In this case, it was ribs. It might be potato. It might be eggs or cheese, or he would do multiple episodes of specific ingredients, because there's so many things you can do with eggs,
Yeah.
or whatever. Pantry Raid was one of his recurring ones, where he'd pull stuff out of the pantry and do that. But he'd also have episodes that were based around techniques too. One in particular I really liked was pouch cooking, where he would talk about different ways to make stuff in pouches that then you can just throw in the oven and cook. And because it didn't matter what you were making, it was how you were making it.
Yeah.
Or a whole episode on like quick pickles and sort of refrigerator style pickles and the different things you can make there. And he would make bread and butter pickles, or hot pickled carrots, or curry pickled cauliflower. He even did like pickled fruit in that one, which was really cool. That was an episode where he also played his brother, BA, or Anti Alton. There was a lot of great family members that came and went in the show.
sure.
His sister was one that would show up a lot, and none of them were his actual family, except for his grandmother was in a season 1 episode on biscuit making, because he was making biscuits,
Obviously.
and he was comparing his method to hers, and like she didn't measure anything, and she schooled him on making biscuits. It was amazing.
Cooking by vibes. It's
Yeah.
Yep.
important.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing. He even mentions it in that episode. Like, you've made how many of these over the years? Because she used to make the biscuits every day growing when, for her family. So it's like she just knows it now. She doesn't have to think about it. But yeah, like his sister, his Elton, his nephew was a character that would show up a lot. He would teach him how to cook stuff. That was always great. I also loved the character, and we didn't get her in this. I don't think she came along till season 2, but it was W,
Yes.
which was his equipment manager
Yes.
Oh,
or
yeah.
equipment person. She was a riff on Q from James Bond, but she was played by Vicky Ang, or W was Vicky Wong. Best part about her character, number one, she just didn't deal with his buffoonery at all. She like, it was the running gag of like, she just couldn't handle his silliness, but she was his chiropractor. Vicky Ang was his chiropractor, and they cast her as this role. It was perfect.
Amazing.
And she was always like giving him the whatever equipment he was going to use for that episode, or whatever random thing he needed, if it was an electric skillet or a salad spinner or something like that. And I learned a lot about kitchen equipment from this show.
That's how I learned you need to have round waffle makers. Your waffle maker
Yeah.
should be round.
It's very important that your waffle maker is round.
I know.
I didn't know that. I have a square waffle maker.
I do too, because
tell
I
you
didn't
what.
buy mine. It was a gift.
I'll send you the link. I'll send you the link for the episode. If for nothing else, you'll get to see Alton as the character of the Waffler.
Oh, don't worry about sending me the link. I'm just going to put these on and watch
There you
every one
go.
of them.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get to that. But yeah, 250. So the show ran till 2011, and then he put it in cryostasis, but he brought it back. They did a series in, I think it was 2017 or 2018, and it was called Good Eats Reloaded,
Mhm.
where he actually went back to and revisited some of his old episodes and reworked recipes or techniques or things that he had learned over the last 15, 20 years. The one that I remember the most from that is pasta. So early on, and Alton was always very outspoken about his opinions on food. And one of his things was always, and this is, I'm sure, Amy, you can talk to this. Like when you learn cooking, you learn that you don't make pasta unless you're going to boil a gallon of water.
Yeah.
Like that is how you make pasta.
Yeah.
Well, he did a whole Reloaded episode where he talked about making pasta, cooking dry pasta with as little water as possible. And it's now the only way that I make it.
Oh wow.
I can't follow down that road.
You know what? You should
can't.
try it.
just
You should
tastes
try
like
it once.
The sea, and then no, I can't do it.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that
I am gonna make that Instagram recipe though, where you take the teeny tiny pasta stars and you cook it in the bone broth, and that's what you eat when you don't feel well. I am.
that
gonna
would
do
work.
that.
But the thing with the pasta that I learned was the less amount of water. What it does is it concentrates the starch. You don't lose a bunch of the starch to the water that you then drain off, and so it helps for the sauce to adhere better.
Yeah,
It honestly is the better way to do it. I'm just going to say that.
Sometimes we just reject the facts.
I
Okay.
don't want it starchy. I don't care if my pasta sauce sticks because I'm generally not eating tomato sauce because I'm in my 40s and it gives me heartburn.
Oh man,
So
yeah.
it's irrelevant.
Big spaghetti dinner, and then you laid out in bed. You're like,
You're
oh,
like,
mistakes.
Oh God, no! I can have it at lunch. That's fine.
That hole
After
from your
5 p.m., forget it. Game over.
that hole from your stomach to your esophagus just widens just a little too
It's
much
not
as you get
good.
older.
But yeah, so Good Eats Reloaded was great because it used footage from the old episodes and new ones, and he, would revisit
You could just
stuff and
watch
he would
his
talk about.
hairline.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, and boy, did he make fun of that
Yeah.
a lot. But it was also for a chance for him to revisit recipes that didn't work and that he didn't like, that maybe he wanted to redo. So that was kind of cool. And then the show came back, and for 2 seasons it ran as Good Eats The Return, and it was all new episodes.
Oh,
He did
cool.
2 more years of that. So it was a show that just kept going. There's right now on Max there are 16 seasons of the show there. So if you want to watch them, they're all there and they're worth it.
Yeah.
Because this show is what got me cooking, and it really, really is. And it's just one of those that modern food television owes so much. Alton owes to the Martin Yans and Emeril Lagasse's and Julia Childs, right? They're the ones that set the foundation and built it up. And he took it to a different level. And he realized in 2011, like, primetime cooking shows are no longer instructional. They're moving into game shows and that kind of stuff. And that's why he knew it was the time to go out, where he could go out on his own terms and not get canceled.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a fantastic show. Steven, you already kind of mentioned this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Are you going to watch more Good Eats?
Oh, hands down. Like, I mean, honestly, watching him make those ribs, and not only make the ribs, but explain. I didn't know what a short rib versus spare rib versus baby back. I didn't know what any of that meant. Like, to be fair though, I will say this: trying to figure out whether you should eat lunch while watching this episode, that was a toss-up because I was eating the pizza that I'd warmed up, watching him cut up pieces of meat and talk about where it comes from, and I was like, oh no, can I do this? But I love that he started with the butcher. I love the gag where he's walking between scenes and his clothes change. He's like, what happened? I can see the Monty Python influence now that you say it.
And this was a pretty toned down episode overall.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like this was pretty on the level.
Yeah. Because there are other episodes where, like we said, there's puppets and there's people in costume and like he will have
Anytime
things
the
about the
molecular
cells.
models
Yeah.
come out,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
then we're
molecular cellular
talking.
models.
You're
I
like,
mean,
this is it.
I'm married to a science lady, so I think I can get her to sit down and watch this with me too. If
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
Oh,
if
I
they're
bet.
making molecule models, Stephanie will be
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
"Yes, please. I will watch more of this." So yeah, I'm 100% in. I want to go to the store. I want to make some ribs, even though I don't tend to order ribs anywhere. They look delicious, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Ooh, that looks tasty," and it became accessible. Something that, and this is something that happens on YouTube all the time. I love YouTube University. I believe in it. I've learned how to woodwork.
Mhm.
I've learned how to do junk on the computer. I've learned how to weld. I've learned how to solder. I've never once thought I should watch TV to see if I can learn how to cook. But it's there and it's ready and
Mhm.
it's good and it's fun and immediately wanted to go see if I could do it. So
Mhm.
Alton Brown, mission accomplished. I am now curious enough to go. I might make some ribs on Saturday when I got some extra time and nobody's breathing down my neck to dinner now. Like during the week, 5 o'clock rolls around. It's like,
Yeah,
oh
no.
no, panic, tacos, spaghetti. What can I make real fast?
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing I could see starting on 4 o'clock on a Saturday. Going, all right, I'm gonna work this out. We're gonna make some stuff. Anyway, that's a
The other
long-winded way
recipe
of saying yes. I'll do it. I'll watch it.
the other recipe of his that I absolutely swear by are the chicken wings.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because he does the buffalo wings, which are like that's your standard, like, and they're real good, and that is your standard. And then he does this like orange one that is to die for. And the way that he cooks them, because you got to put them in the fridge uncovered to let them dry out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's important.
Yep.
And then he cooks them in the oven. I've also done them on, like, I
Yep.
prep them the same way and cook them on the grill, and then they get that good smoky smell. That's another one of his recipes that I 100% of the time I'm like, yes, that's
Oh
the
Yeah.
one.
man, I could use a new chicken wing recipe. I'd never even considered putting stuff in the fridge and letting it dry out.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really good if you want the nice crispy.
I
Yeah.
bet that will make a huge difference
Mhm.
for
It
my
does.
wings. Because my wings
Yeah.
are fine, but they're not great. The sauce
Well, I
slides
mean,
off of them because they're covered in chicken grease, and they're not,
Yeah.
like you said, they're not crispy.
and I mean, he's the reason that I learned about and now will always brine poultry and pork
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
I watched like I will not do a Thanksgiving turkey without brining the turkey. I will
Mhm.
not do it. My mom will consistently be like, "No, we can just, we don't have to do that." I'm like, "No, just give me the bird. I will take care of it. Like we're not having a turkey without it being brined, damn it."
Like
Because
a lot of the grocery store ones are at least injected with like a vaguely briny solution. But my farm turkey comes with nothing. So
Mhm.
you absolutely must brine it, and it is so good.
Oh yeah. But like there's so many different things that I've learned from this show that I carry over into my cooking world now. So Steven, you'll rewatch it. Audie, how about you?
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're gonna probably watch some more.
Oh, sure. Like, and this is the thing. Alton Brown has, like, it's what, 16, 17 seasons that are on Max.
Mhm.
Again, check out his YouTube. Look at all those pantry rate stuff he did during the pandemic. Like, if there's
Yep.
something you want to cook, put it in the Googles with Alton
Mhm.
Brown's name, and you could probably find an episode where he's cooking it, and find
Oh
something
yeah.
entertaining and a way to cook it. Again, like Steven said, I love how he makes it approachable and tells you a way that you can cook this stuff, that you don't need all the fancy extra equipment, that you could just do it in your home by mixing the stuff, using the stove, oven, whatever, and get it done.
Yeah. Amy, how about you? You gonna watch some more Good Eats?
All right, I don't know that I'm gonna go back and watch more, but I do realize that I do need to pull those cookbooks off the shelf and give them a good flip through,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and maybe revisit some of them for sure.
Yeah, I definitely was watching a few episodes today just to get an overall feel for the show to be able to do like an intro because he loves alliteration, so I had
Yes,
to work
he
that into my
does.
intro.
That was good.
And watching those, I'm like adding stuff to my shopping list as I'm watching episodes. Like, all right, I'm gonna get some baby carrots and I'm gonna hot pickled carrots, like all that kind of stuff, because I'm just watching these. Like, I need to make all this. I've never in my life had any desire to make a crown rack of lamb. And I watch this episode and I'm like, I could make a crown rack of lamb. Like, that probably
This is the
not
thing,
bad.
right? Like I pork. I like ribs. I like all kinds of like smoked pork, right? Like I like ham. I like bacon.
Sure.
I like sausage, whatever. But like I don't love pork chops or pork loin. And so I watched the episode. I remember, like, I watched the episode on pork chops, and he puts them in the slow cooker, and it's a whole thing. And he's like, and they are not going to be dry, and you are going to love them. And they were not dry, and I did not love them because I just don't like pork. It turns out
Sometimes you just don't like a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Slow cooker tenderloin, though. That's the way we do it, and it is
Same.
wonderful.
I want to like it so much because it's so easy.
Yeah.
That's great. Would be so easy. And I'm like, I keep trying, and I'm like, it's just not.
It's just
I
not
can't
for
do
you.
it.
I love how much this show is like Mythbusters to me. Like the minute I started watching it, I'm like, it's cut like a Discovery Channel, like the the high times of Discovery kind of show.
Yep.
I think that was the thing that stood out to me most, that pulled me in, and why I gave it the Adam Savage comparison, because that's what it felt like. It knew how to engage me real quick that way.
Yeah, he really knew how to make a cooking show interesting and engaging and not and informative at the same time.
He gave it
Like,
momentum. He comes out
Yeah.
of the gate with like momentum, and it's different from a lot of the cooking shows that we watched in the past, where it's slow and it stays slow because it's instructional. This found a way to hook you,
don't miss it,
pull you in, and keep the pace so that you actually enjoyed it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think if you do watch more, you're going to love the episodes that have the food agent.
Yeah,
because that's great.
That sounds
an
great.
agent bringing different ingredients to Alton to like jazz them up.
That sounds great. I'm in.
They're fantastic.
I
These
know.
were roughly, they were roughly around the same time as Mythbusters anyway, so there was probably a lot of comparison with the producers.
That makes sense. I think Food TV and Discovery Channel, they were both part of the same grandpa network.
They're all like,
right?
There's only like 3.
Yeah.
Like
Viacom, Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Right. They're all the same.
Mm-hmm. And if you get a chance to if you can find it, Feasting on Asphalt is
so
an
good.
amazing miniseries.
Okay.
Where he did 2 of them. And it was Alton Brown and a crew, and they would bike. They were taking motorcycles across the country and just
They went
checking
across
out food.
one time and then up and down one time.
Yeah.
They went up and
So
down
they
the
went from-
Mississippi, right?
Yeah,
Is that the second one?
The second one was the length of the Mississippi, and the first one was somewhere in like South Carolina, all the way along to California, but no interstates, all by roads.
No interstates, no chain restaurants.
Yep.
If they couldn't find somewhere to eat, they cooked. He cooked a meal like bungee corded to his engine.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Is wild.
He also broke his shoulder in the first one.
Yeah,
which
he
was
sure
great.
did.
Yeah.
He laid his bike down and broke his shoulder.
Oh jeez.
Apparently,
somewhere in,
it's
like,
on Tubi right
Nevada.
now.
It's on Tubi.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Well,
That's
I know what I'm
really
doing
good.
tonight. Because I have spent I watched those when they debuted on Food
Yeah.
Network, and I have since then I have not been able to watch them. So if it's on Tubi,
I have
watching it.
season 1 on DVD. I think it's
Oh
season one.
wow.
It might be both, but I do have them on. I have the box set.
I also loved. There was a moment in I think the first one where they stopped somewhere and he had a pickled pig's foot, and he kind of came out from the place with it, and he took one bite and he's like, "All right, well I've had one anyway," and just kind of sits it down. And is like, "Let's go."
The one that sticks with me is there was a field of asparagus, and there was a table with a knife and a little box with a slit in the top and a scale, like a manual scale. And so you would go out, you could use their terrible knife to cut your asparagus, you would weigh it, and then you would honor system pay for it in a little box
Wow.
and go along on your way.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so that is Good Eats. It is my cooking show, and I'm so glad. Steven, I'm glad you saw this.
Oh, man.
And I can't believe you
sure.
hadn't seen anything Alton
Nothing.
Brown.
Yeah.
Nah, not a darn thing.
We should have known from when we did cooking shows, though. We should have.
I mean,
sure.
I guess kind of, but Also, a good episode of Mythbusters had him on it, where he cooked a lasagna in an engine block.
Yeah.
While they
That's
drove.
awesome. All right, I'm gonna go
Didn't-
find
No.
that.
Didn't they also cook? No, it was in the
No,
dishwasher.
they cooked the lasagna in the dishwasher. That's right. It was
Yeah.
it was a chicken dinner they cooked on the engine block.
on the
Yeah.
engine block, and that was on Feasting on Asphalt. I think
Oh
that's what that
man,
was. And
I'm,
then they cooked the lasagna in a dishwasher.
I'm hunting that down.
So,
It's amazing.
Mhm.
so yeah, that is Good Eats. That ends our month of host choice. So we all got to choose something. Did we decide what we're doing for the next one?
We said
Yes.
sitcoms and nobody argued, so we're doing
Hooray.
sitcoms.
Good,
That's
because
fine
that's
with
what I was
me.
planning on.
Nothing like doing it live.
Excellent.
We're so good at
Nothing
this.
forces you make a decision more than a time limit.
So we're moving on to sitcoms. Audie, you're going to start us off with that. Where are you taking us?
Yeah. So for sitcoms, I was like, what's something I remember that we haven't even touched that would be good? So did a little looking, and I found this little gem that we're gonna do. We're gonna watch Mr. Belvedere.
Oh
Ooh.
man.
It's on YouTube. I did find it on
Amazing.
YouTube in good quality.
Sweet.
We're gonna watch season 1, episode 3. Gotta dance.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr.
Excellent.
Belvedere. Oh, I'm so psyched.
That's great.
And that is going to kick off our next 4 episodes of sitcoms. We also, by the way, are going to be at Dragon Con live in just a few short weeks.
Mhm.
Which is crazy.
17 days, Travis. Or I guess
Oh,
18 if you
I-
count the actual show. I know. Deep breaths.
I know.
I don't
know.
have anything together. I
Mhm.
haven't planned anything. I don't know how
Nope.
anything works. Time to go.
I'll just be here in my room as always. So
Yeah, you just relax.
I have zero stress.
Yes, I
I'm
should
fine.
say 3 of the 4 of us will be live at Dragon Con, and Amy will be piped in via satellite.
Yes.
And
Remote
doing
Amy.
a live remote. But we are going to be doing Those Are the Days Retro Roulette Rewind or something like that. Is that what it is?
Rewind roulette.
There we
Travis.
go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it's real hard to say.
So
we're going to spin the
It was
wheel.
alliteration.
We're going to spin the wheel 20 topics. When it lands on a topic, we're going to talk about that topic with each other and the audience and probably throw candy at people. So if you're there and you're not in that room, you're not getting any old man candy. 'Cause
True.
those were the days is bringing the retro all the way to the candy bags. So
Yeah.
brace
Right.
yourselves.
So definitely, if you make it to Dragon Con, come to the basement of the Hilton, hang out with us. It'll be a lot of fun. That'll be Saturday of Dragon Con at 4 p.m.
Yep.
Mhm.
Are we in 7 or 8?
I
6
thought
or
we were in
7?
6.
I don't remember.
Thought we were in 6.
I think we're
I
in-
might be wrong. You'll find it. You'll be there.
One of the
Yeah.
rooms.
Yeah.
You'll find us there.
There'll be terrible
Um,
signage that won't tell you anything, but somebody will be there. You can ask.
Yeah, perfect.
No matter how many years Dragon Con takes place, we cannot get the signage right, and we all know it. Everybody's
Oh.
putting pieces of paper and sticky tape to the wall. This is not the
great.
entrance. That is so good. Bit of honey.
So definitely-
I'm on. I got you, Captain Temerity.
Excellent. But definitely join us for that, and join us for sitcoms for the next 4. I can't wait to see what
Yeah.
sitcoms we go to,
Oh, it's gonna
because
be
we've done
great.
quite a few, but there's
That's
a
our only
lot out
caveat. Our
there.
only caveat is we cannot pick something we have already
Right.
visited for another
Yes.
topic.
No, it's got to be a new one.
It's got to be a new one.
Quote unquote
Great. I'm pumped.
Yeah.
So-
like a old new one. A new
Yeah.
old one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So next week, Mr. Belvedere, Audie's taking us there. But until then, it's for Amy, for Stephen, for Audie. I'm Travis saying good night, food fans.